Global consciousness of humanity and its influence on the surrounding reality. Modern scientific materialistic paradigm degraded humanity just to biological machines, which can only influence the external world by their physical actions. However, many ancient spiritual traditions tell us that our own consciousness can also influence our own reality. Also, materialistic paradigm totally isolated us from each other, therefore we feel like we are just entities that are totally disconnected from each other. However, what if I told you that there are plenty of different scientific experiments that have shown the existence of collective global consciousness of humanity, and that our own collective intentions can also influence our world at large? Impossible? In this episode, we'll talk about the interconnectedness between us and the experiments showing the global collective consciousness of humanity and how our collective intentions can totally change our modern world. My name is Alexander. I'm a researcher and author of Deja Vu Has Everything Already Been, and in this episode we are talking about the global consciousness. And many spiritual traditions actually tell us about the global consciousness. And in Christianity, in the Jewish traditions, and in many others, we have the mention that all is just source and all just came from the source, which is pure consciousness. In Christianity, we've got that at the beginning was the Word, and Word was with God, and the Word was God. However, this word is the Greek logos, which can also be mind, reason, and many other things connected with thought. Therefore, at the beginning was the mind. However, of course, the most popular versions of the global consciousness can be found in the Far East, in the Hindu tradition. Here we've got that all is Brahman, and that all stems from Brahman. And Brahman, according to the Upanishads, is one great collective consciousness, and our own consciousnesses are just the stems from this collective global consciousness, and that our entire world is just one consciousness. When it comes to the experiments, we've got plenty of different types of experiments that have shown the influence of global collective thought on our material reality. And one type of experiments that were multiple times replicated by many different scientists concerns the random number generators, RNG for short, also called random event generators. These generators generate random numbers, zeros or ones, in a 50-50% manner. And these generators are not based on the computational algorithm, but are based on the decay of some atoms that give us the 50-50% chance for zeros and ones. Therefore, if global collective consciousness of humanity truly exists, these random number generators would be influenced because they are not based on the algorithm, which shouldn't be changed when it comes to consciousness, but on the decay of atoms, so on the natural type of thing. And these random number generators were generating 400 different zeros and ones per second. Therefore, if we get a large number of zeros and ones, for instance, on a daily basis, we should have like 50-50% zeros and one, or maybe 50.0001, etc. There shouldn't be a discrepancy like 53 to 47 or even 55 to 35. And these experiments have shown that during such global events like 9/11, like the awards for movies, or like the Olympic Games, during which consciousness of humans is elevated and we've got plenty of emotions at a global scale, these random number generators were showing a large discrepancies between this 50-50, and they show, for instance, a large amount of more ones than zeros, which was just during the peak experience of the Olympics or during the after effects of the 9/11 1911, which is very interesting. And these studies were first conducted by Dr. Roger Nelson of Princeton University. Then they were replicated, for instance, by Dick Bierman of the University of Amsterdam. However, they were also replicated by many other scientists, and actually these studies were collected on the entire planet. These random number generators were set in different locations on the entire world and were conducted by many scientists from all over the world. And the graphs have shown the large discrepancies between the norm and that during such a peak experiences, like the awaiting Nobel Prize, like the awaiting other prize, for instance the Academy Awards, or in the aftermath of 9/11, during which the entire humanity knew about the catastrophe, the zeros and one were totally scattered, and there were, for instance, much more ones than zeros, and we see it on graphs like this. And actually it shows us that the elevated emotions and the global consciousness of humanity, because these news were spread on the entire planet and hundreds of millions of people were watching them, for instance, on TV. And as we see, global consciousness of humanity and its intentions, emotions and states of consciousness really can influence our material world at large. However, this experiment only have proven that the global consciousness exists and that it can influence these random number generators, so the decay of atoms. However, there are plenty of more experiments that have shown us a much larger influence of global consciousness, and that this global consciousness can help us even to achieve the global peace and to reduce terrorism and any other conflicts. And these were the peace gathering projects. Peace gathering projects were demonstrated about 50 times in 23 peer-reviewed scientific journals. So actually it isn't just some woo-woo spiritual stuff, but it is a replicable thing, and it is real evidence that global consciousness exists and that can actually gather peace. And all of these experiments were peace gathering projects, so their main intention was to gather peace around the world. Some of these experiments were just local, like for instance the Lebanon Peace Project. And the Lebanon Peace Project was a project during the war between Israel and Lebanon, mostly during 1983, and its main intention was to show the radiant influence of peace. And actually many thousands of meditators were meditating and praying on the peace during this time, and there was a large reduction of war deaths, crimes, fires, and even traffic, and this reduction was in 76%. And actually in all of these experiments that I've mentioned, these 50 experiments in 23 peer-reviewed scientific journals, most of them had an average of about 70% of reduction in crimes, in terrorism, or as in this case in war atrocities. And it was even conducted during the peak of the Lebanon war, and during even this peak of Lebanon war where there should be the most number of deaths, etc., these deaths were reduced by about 76%. So it shows us that if we do not want to be in a war, or we do not want war, we can by our own intention reduce it and actually make a global peace. However, this experiment was just local. We've got plenty of other experiments that concern the entire planet, and we've got, for instance, the RAND Corporation experiment, in which 8,000 trained meditators were meditating during the 8 to 11 days period in 1983 and in 1985, and they achieved 72% reduction of worldwide terrorism. All of these experiments were also having the lag analysis, which was actually eliminating other influences, like that there was Christmas, that there was a weekend, or that there were other holidays that could really reduce these numbers. So this lead lag analysis actually cut off all of of these influences. However, of course, there may be many more influences that weren't cut. However, this about 70% of reduction in terrorism and other things is a major breakthrough and couldn't be a coincidence. There were also other projects like that in India during the period of 1987 and 1990. 7,000 meditators were meditating on global peace. And actually it is very interesting because during this time there happened the largest changes of the last century. There was the end of the communism and many other sudden revolution and breakthroughs in human consciousness. It may be a coincidence, however, I think that these meditators really influenced our global situation. Many other experiments were also conducted. For instance, in 1993, FBI was researching these effects, and about 2,500 people in Washington, D.C. were also meditating. And again, this showed that the global intention, that intention of just a actually relatively small amount of people, because we compare some thousands of people to actually billions of people living on Earth, can influence the entire reality. So if, let's say, 1% or less than 1% of people worldwide were to have an intention of global peace, we could actually reduce everything from the war deaths, from the terrorism, to even the traffic that really annoy us. So as we see, this global consciousness not only exists, however, it also influences our world at large. So the main key to making a global peace isn't actually fighting the fighters who want to share this brutality, but to have positive intention, and that to, let's say, raise our vibration and pray and meditate on the global or just local peace. We can actually, as we've seen in this experiment, we can reduce war crimes, all of the brutality, etc. on the entire planet. I hope you enjoyed this video. In my next video we will speak about the influence of this small group of people and how our personal transformation and raising of vibration truly can change the collective of humanity. Therefore, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. That will be all for today. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye, and to the next video.